And welcome back to the channel, guys. Thanks for being here. And thank you, Danny, coming back here. You might be permanently joining this channel, considering you come on the day before a big breakthrough there for Rory. But how are we doing tonight, Danny?
Good. I mean, I had to come back and take my licks after I said I was fading him the whole way. So I had to come back and give you your kudos, and then also, put my hand up and say, terrible pick. Hopefully nobody, bet behind me.
Well, I will say this: you're the only guy that's ever really made me root for Brooks Koepka. So there's love both ways. I did feel bad not seeing Brooks get to the cut, or make the cut rather than get to the weekend. But yeah, I mean, I can't talk any trash. You asked me how exposed I was on Rory, and I'm 0%. No wagers on Rory for the first time in years. No DraftKings lineup, prize picks, no anything, nothing whatsoever. We were going to just play it scot-free. And so, but yeah, let's talk about a crazy day, man. We'll start from the beginning because we got about half an hour here, and we're going to go through it all. Everything that happened this morning, we were getting kicked in the teeth in flag football, so I missed anything that wasn't Bryson or Rory, but I wasn't concerned, really, to be honest, about anyone that wasn't Bryson or Rory. I didn't think it would be about them. I thought it was going to be Rory and Bryson's day. I thought we'd get a heavyweight battle, a big-time showdown. But yeah, first thing I see when I come into my house, Rory's on the tee box. Rory finds the bunker. When that happened right there, Augusta, you know how difficult the golf track is. That's not an easy, you can easily make 6 or worse from there. When was that the point where you were like, all right, this is standard Rory, or was it more further into the round? That's just one bad tee shot in your mind.
No, I thought it just looked very nervy. Like just something about it. I felt like, I'm assuming this is how he felt, but this is my perception of the way that he felt, was like, okay, another chance with whatever he had. What was it? It was a 2-shot lead. And it was like, this is probably my best chance, if not my last chance to close the deal. And it just felt like that first driver swing, that's how that one goes. That's the like non-committed, like a little bit nervy sort of like fan out to the right for him. And it was actually the same exact drive that he hit on 2 when he ended up in that bunker. But you just sort of saw like all the things go wrong on 1. And it was just like, there's just no way that it goes down like this easy. Cause then after the double on 1, Bryson makes a 6-7 footer for par. He wasn't, he didn't have the easiest par either after snap hooking it into the trees. And then you sort of see Rory get one in the bunker again on 2. And then, not really have a great look at birdie there. And then Bryson birdie. And then it's like, okay, the lead's gone. And it's just like, it can't go down. It's like, there's no way he's going away that easy, but man, could it have been a worse start for him? So that's sort of, I was thinking about you the whole time, because I was like, I can't remember which Masters it was. I think it was the one Patrick Reed won, like 2017, but he was somewhere close. I think maybe in like the final pairing or the final couple pairings, and just sort of disappeared early. We never really saw much coverage from him, but I mean, it almost felt like this had to be the way that Rory won it. I think I texted you that because we were going back and forth. Like, I think the runaway that it started to be, right around the turn with the 4-shot lead was like, it's going to be way more sweet for Rory and all Rory fans whenever it's like the monkey's off his back and he had to go earn it, a couple times. He won that tournament in my mind twice or 3 times probably today. And then, somehow still ended up in a playoff. So I don't know. To answer your question, 1 felt like it was just real nervy, but then it sort of seemed like he settled into it. He made a great birdie on 3. And I feel like that sort of settled him. And he birdied at 4, I think, too.
He
So
said
that's
that shot or that birdie on 3, or his second shot on 3 was arguably his biggest shot of the day, just for his nerves, kind of settle him into the round. Obviously, he had to leave the green on number 2, upset about not necessarily not making birdie right in that moment, because that was a tough look, but just the way that he played that hole, he knows that's an opportunity there. He has obviously the firepower to get there in 2 and pick up tap in 4s. But Bryson, it was Bryson was doing enough to where I feel like Rory kind of really had to stay really dialed in and focus. Obviously, he's trying not to look at leaderboards allegedly, but Bryson just didn't just fall apart, there in the beginning. I think that maybe kind of helped Rory keep it together, stay focused, maybe not start feeling bad for himself because he looks over and his playing partner's playing bad as well. It came a little bit later. Bryson's struggles did, but yeah, you talk about the birdies at 3, talk about the birdie at 4. That was where the shot on 4 was like, okay, that
he's back. He's
ball,
back. Like he's locked in.
all right. It reminded me of round 2, and it obviously not exactly because he was 1 under on the front there before he got really, really hot. But it was just kind of like, a flurry is coming. He has the firepower. The course matches his game so much. He's been playing so dang well, so eventually, inevitably, it felt like, we were going to see a run of birdies. Well, then you pick it up on 3, you pick it up on 4, and you're like, okay, we're definitely gaining shots on the field here. You're like, this is a big deal here. But I told you the same thing. I think I got, and I really appreciate it. I never, through this account of Ghost of Texas Football, a Ghost and Friends, I never thought, that we'd be doing PGA stuff. I've tried very hard not to bring up a lot of PGA stuff because I don't want to bore my followers that are here for football or here for Texas basketball, baseball, SEC sports, whatever it is. But these guys made it so fun today. There's a ton of people from YouTube, Twitter that have my phone number. About 20% of them would text me every time Rory would screw up. Every single time. They'd be like, "Oh, how you doing? Yeah, what's going on now?" It's Bryson's. It's the people's champ. And then the other 80% of the time, people are texting me, and it's every time Rory does something positive, and they're like, "We're back up. Get off the ground. We're alive. We're doing all right." And so I'm a dork. I wore tiger red today, and then the standard Rory white hat. I was like, "We're gonna summon all power. We're gonna pull out every single stop that we can." Big Nate, appreciate you being here, man. Definitely feeling good. I know you're a big fan of what happened today too, and obviously you love seeing Scotty Scheffler be the one to pop that jacket on Rory McIlroy. So yeah, and guys, tomorrow night got a special thing for you. We're gonna have Mr. Robert Mendoza. That is Ethan Mendoza's dad. He'll be on to handle Texas baseball with me tomorrow night at 8:30. We'll recap Texas and Kentucky. And yeah, again, that's the Ethan Mendoza, our leadoff hitter, who's absolutely killing it. I'm happy to get some thoughts from his pops. So glad that he'll be here with us. But this is funny because it's true in every aspect. Bryson will be fine. He's going to continue to kill it. Bryson's going to win another major, probably multiple majors. But you can guarantee he'll be shooting other. And this is not political. You shoot a video with whatever political figures you'd like to. I don't care. But you just know he's going to do it. Is my point. And there will be I definitely had some jokes queued up as far as YouTube golf. But I like Bryson. But I've seen so much Rory hate. And was receiving some Rory hate today that I was like, I'm going to bite back a little bit. But no, absolutely not, man. It was a great time. I feel bad for Bryson. Outside of the comments that were made, did you see, and we'll get back into talking about Rory's round and Justin Rose as well. Really cool tournament for a lot of guys. You saw multiple guys that haven't been playing well come into form here. But before we get into that, did you see the comments that Bryson made in his presser regarding Rory and his lack of desire to communicate with him during this round whatsoever? You see any of that?
I did. I just saw that.
I was watching when Rory, as I said, when Rory's standing on the first tee. First thing I'm seeing is Rory's on the first tee. Bryson is making his grand entrance, which is cool. The fans love Bryson. It was a cool scene. He makes his big grand entrance, and he's kind of standing to the side of Rory. Rory turns, walks up to Bryson, says, "Hey, man, let's have a day," shakes his hand. So I don't know. I kind of found it weird. Maybe you didn't, because obviously I have a tie. I'm tied into this situation here. I'm a little bit biased, but I don't. Should Bryson have expected anything more than that? I mean, to me, that's enough. You hear stories about Tiger, not talking to anybody. But what are your thoughts on that, Danny?
No, I mean, yeah, I agree. I wouldn't think that you would expect to have conversation a ton, especially when you're battling in the final round of the Masters, especially with what Rory was going through. And I also want to talk about, we'll talk about that a little bit, but like all the sort of the demons exercise, me and you were texting about that too. But the only thing I could think of, so I wouldn't expect them to be, and they don't seem super friendly. The only thing I could think of is if he was either just bitter about the way he played, which is probably extremely possible. And two would have been if he maybe sort of tried to have an exchange with Rory, either mid round, maybe during the handshake afterwards, or maybe like after he won or something. And Rory just sort of blew him off. That'd be the only thing I could think of. But I mean, for him not to want to talk to you in the middle of the round, I mean, I could assume why, especially when he starts with a double, you take the lead, and then he goes on and makes, another double and plenty more bogeys. Like there wasn't a ton of like, he was doing everything he could to keep it together. So to me, that wasn't super surprising. And I think maybe Bryson was just, you saw Shane Lowry, sort of was similar yesterday or whatever. After his round, he didn't finish great, and they were asking him. He goes, "I'm not standing up here for 10 minutes answering questions about my friend Rory. Like, ask me about my round or whatever." So, I think it was maybe one of those where he was just a little bit bitter about the way things ended. But I mean, yeah, we celebrate when Tiger was so locked in. I don't know, and like I said, I'm not a Rory guy, but I don't know why we would expect him to want to be talkative, throughout the round. But the thing to note is, we had talked about this on Wednesday night, was what were we looking forward to down the stretch? And I was nervous around hole 9 that I think I had texted you. I was like, man, history is going to be cool, but I just wanted drama. And boy, did we get it. But the best thing is we were talking about needing somebody to root for and a villain. And the fact that it was Rory and Bryson, and, maybe Bryson for the first, probably like 10, 11, probably until he hit it in the water on 11.
Right.
But they are just the antithesis of each other. Like Bryson is the people's champ, sort of this like outgoing guy. Rory's this, a little bit more uptight, but you probably have people that root for one or the other, and probably not a ton of people that were rooting for both. So I think that I was texting one buddy and I was just like, man, the way this ended up was just absolutely great television. But I just thought it was cool that, at least for overnight last night, the final pairing, it was basically the two polar opposites. And then, not to bring up the live stuff, but Bryson going to live, and Rory was the champion of the anti-live movement for the longest time. Like there was just so much to the fact that it was those two battling it out. So I thought we got pretty much everything we could have as fans with that final pairing. And then the way that the back 9 just ended was just absolutely insane. I mean, there was a while that when Rose, Rory, and Ludwig were all tied at 10, and Scotty was right there at 8. I mean, it really feels like anybody could win this golf tournament, which as fans, minus you and all the Rory, apologists out there, probably that's what we wanted. You guys probably would have liked him to roll in about, 4 or 5 shots clear. But as golf fans, we sure got a treat.
I mean, in the beginning of today, if you were to tell me, Danny, like, hey, like he's going to win the green jacket, like don't sweat that. It's going to be in very dramatic fashion, or very, very not boring fashion, but it's going to be a walk on the back 9. It's going to be a big coronation. Eamon Corner will sing his praises, chant his names. He'll throw one tight on 13 and make a 3. And then, we'll roll it home easy. I'm not going to take that, because that's not Rory's story. That doesn't line up, like you talked about conquering demons. It doesn't line up with what his careers look like. And as much as I love the guy, and I'll give a quick backstory on my fandom for Rory. I couldn't stand Rory McIlroy. I didn't start getting into golf as far as a player until 2018, but I was just a Texas golf fan. I love Spieth, I love Scheffler, Bo Hostler, Dylan Fratelli, and I would follow them on tour. Of course, I knew who Tiger was. I knew who Rory was. But then we started going once a year. We'd take an out-of-state trip and go find a tournament to go to. We went to the Arnold Palmer. We went to the Players in 2019. Rory won both of those tournaments that I went to. And just the ball flight, he's a tiny little guy. He's not a big guy. The ball flight, the crowd, it's different. It's special. And there's a lot of character involved with Rory and his game. And so, I mean, I started becoming a big fan with that. Well, then after the live stuff, that's when it really like escalated for me. Is I think they just like they made him a sacrificial lamb, and so that's where my Rory love comes from. Like I am a Rory apologist. I'm a Rory defender. Every single time that a buddy texts me and is like, "Who's winning this major?" There's one name I'm putting down. You know, I might add another text with a couple other names, but it's almost trying to kind of get under his skin a little bit because he is not a guy that roots for Rory. And like you said, I think it's. I mean, you got Bryson out there wearing the live hat, the bone crushers or whatever the hell they are over there, and I'm not knocking it. You know what I mean? But Rory stood up firmly against that. Rory had the U.S. Open, in the palm of his hand essentially, and a couple late bogeys there, a missed 3.5-footer downhill, and Bryson's lifting his trophy. And so, like, I don't understand. Just long story short, I don't understand why Bryson cares. Like you said, if he were to go up to him post round and say, "Hey, great round today. You go win the playoff," and Rory just shakes him off, says nothing. Like that's a different story. But I'd be very surprised, if that's how it did play out. So it'll be back. Those two will be probably back on another big stage, sooner rather than later because they're on top of their games. Bryson's a really dang good player in majors lately. Obviously, Rory is always around in majors of late, and so that's another rivalry that we talk about Rory and Scotty. A lot of 10 years ago, people were talking about Rory and Jordan Spieth. Do you think, Bryson and Rory has major legs as far as a rivalry, or are you still giving, maybe more towards Scotty and Rory there? I mean, is it just going to be these three guys and maybe another one or two guys, depending on whether these other superstars who's in form that really go at it? But none of these guys are going away for a while, I guess is my point.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think it's Scotty and Rory for me just because they both play PGA and it just seems like, they're constantly the two that we talk about. But I do think as far as like rivalries go, I do think probably Rory and Bryson because Scotty and Rory are friendly. They're both Nike guys. They're both TaylorMade guys. They played in that deal against Brooks and Bryson. So they're friendly. But it does seem like, ever since the U.S. Open, there has, and maybe it's gone before that, but at least publicly, there's sort of been this back and forth because, I think Bryson may have been salty too because, Rory didn't obviously talk to him after the U.S. Open the way that ended. And they asked him about that, and he was like, "Oh yeah, he saw me at whatever the Open Championship and finally like told me like congrats or whatever." But that was like all we talked about it. And then everybody's seen that clip going around online when they were playing in that deal in Vegas, and Rory's like, "I want to get Bryson back to what he did to me at, Pinehurst." And he's like, you pretty much did it to yourself. So, I think there has been some banter. So I think as far as rivalries go, it's those two. But I do think probably overall, we probably see Scotty and Rory in more battles. But I just thought it was cool. We talked about Masters or favorite Masters moments. And I texted you this right after I said I have my new favorite Masters moments because we don't, like the emotion that you saw from Rory on 18, I think is probably what we all wanted to see, but I'm not sure we all like knew if we would see it, just sort of the way that Rory sort of, protects himself publicly sometimes. But you could just see like it was tears and then it almost seemed like anger and then it was like jubilation. It was like all of these things. And to the point about the exercising demons it was obviously the Grand Slam stuff. He has to hear that every time he comes to Augusta. But then it was, he hadn't won a major in 10 and a half years since like 2014. And he's been so close so many times. And last year, it was like, that was his best chance since, probably the last time he won was 2 3-foot putts down the stretch from winning another major. So it wasn't just the Grand Slam and the Master stuff. It was like, is Rory ever going to win another major? And he got so close and it slipped away and it felt like it was slipping away again today. And you just sort of have to think about that inner dialogue of himself of, oh crap, is it happening again? No, lock back in and hit a shot, because he had 100, he needed to get what do you have? 125 yards on 18 if he hits that green, he wins the tournament, and he, of course, in Rory fashion, he puts it in the bunker. He can't get it up and down. So he didn't make it easy on himself, but the resolve that he had was just really cool to see. And then the emotion, and then sort of all the press conferences afterwards is you saw that like all the stuff he said that he didn't pay attention to and that didn't get to him, he's been clocking that the whole time and having to live with that every time he comes back to Augusta. And he finally, was joking with the media, and he was like, what are we going to talk about now? And he's just like, I'm looking forward to not having to, say these things. But he even mentioned how, like, Fred and Tiger and, I think like Tom Watson, all these guys have said, oh, Rory's going to be a Masters champion. It's just a matter of when. And he was like, to finally like get that like off my shoulders, it just was like this huge just release of emotion of like, okay, I can finally let it all go. Like, I've done what I've wanted to do since I was a little kid, what all the media has wanted me to do, what all of my peers have told me, like, and the people I look up to, what I'm going to do. And I haven't been able to do it. I've fallen short every time. And then he finally did it. And then to just see that emotion on 18 was incredible for me. And I was just curious how you felt watching that. Like, I have to imagine that you got emotional, because I almost got emotional, and I'm not a Rory guy. And I'm going to ask Kayla for, verification, but I'm sure that you shed a tear. Can you confirm that?
I'm a big crier, Danny, and I know that most of our time together has been on the golf course or the t-ball fields, but it doesn't take a ton, man, between kids and then athletics. Like, it really doesn't. So, yeah, when he is greeting, his wife and Poppy, and then he's making his way to Shane Lowry, and just they're bros, man, and just seeing the excitement, and just, you talked earlier about Shane Lowry. I loved his interview yesterday. I'm not going to sit up here for 10 minutes and answer damn questions about Rory. I've got a chance to win the tournament too. He said it in a much cooler accent than I just did, but I mean, that was just so pure for me, man, because it's not. Rory wins the Masters. Rory is gonna, he gets the glory. He's getting praise for all of his hard work. But I mean, all the people around Rory, like you just talked about, Tom Watson and others mentioning him, like everybody had placed Rory up on this big pedestal and expected him, obviously to get this tournament under his belt a little bit earlier. But yeah, man, I'm a crier. It did not take much. I almost posted it just for laughs, because I'm telling you, I was like, we're wearing Tiger Red. We're like, whatever we have to do today, like, we're bringing all the good juju. We just have to cleanse ourselves of these demons there. And that's what I want to talk about now. So 2011, he's got a 4-stroke lead in Augusta. There's a point today where Rory he has a 4-stroke lead. It might've been 5 for a half a second too, before Rose made birdie, but so he's got a big lead there. Like you said, he didn't really have that out of bounds ball or anything like that, but he has another meltdown on, at Rays Creek, which, not that he's, I mean, hole 10 really in 2011 is what kind of ended that run for him. If you can remember back, that's when the wheels really came off, and everybody knew at that moment back in 2011 that the young Rory McIlroy was not going to be, putting on the green jacket. Well, today, he goes and makes a very impressive birdie on 10. Obviously, the Bryson DeChambeau demon. Is there any other ones that you can think of that were not? It was a long list of nightmares. It seemed like he was taking them on and checking them off just one by one. Even if for us Rory fans, it was still a nightmare while the experience was going on. But what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it just seemed like if we were in 15 years talking about somebody writing a movie script about Rory winning the green jacket, and they showed us what happened today, I think we would have said, like, okay, there's no way there's no way that could have happened. That doesn't seem real. Just the amount of back and forth. But I will say, like, something, it got weird on 10, because I texted you and I was like, what was that? Because he threw the club on his second shot and he hit it to like 6 feet and made birdie. And then on 11, he gets in some tree trouble, and he hits that big slinger kind of runner, and it almost goes into the creek, but it stays up. And that's when Bryson, puts it in the drink over there. But he doesn't get up and down on 11, and he makes bogey, which just seemed like kind of sloppy. It wasn't that tough of an up and down. Mm-hmm. And so then I was we had talked about, hole 12 is sort of where, it's won or lost. It seems like a lot of times. And he just does perfectly, hits it right over that bunker, easy 2-putt, and he makes par. And then that's when I texted you, and I think my quote was, yeah, cool to see history, but would be a lot better if there was some more drama. And then he has 80 yards on 13, and, just mishits it, and then doesn't get it up and down and makes double. And then it was just great. I mean, I have a list of shots. I mean, some of the shots he hits today, like the highlights from today, are insane from him. Like, we already talked about the chip on 3. But the second shot on 7, when he was in the trees left, and just, I don't even know what club it was, but just absolutely lashes it up and over the trees, and then, hits it, I don't know what, to 7-8 feet. He ends up missing the putt, but to even get that ball on the green was insane. And then the shots of the day, obviously, the second on 15 from up under the trees, the 7-iron that just, goes to 5 feet. And then the shot on 17 that rolls in and makes, there were just so many highlights. And it's like, that's the Rory. You get the Rory that can hit any golf shot that, probably only him on the planet can hit. But then, also the mistakes that follow it, and then not getting up and down on 18. So I don't know. It was just I had some text come in that was like, that might be the greatest round of golf I've ever seen. So it wasn't just the past demons. It was the in-round demons of like, dude, do not let this slip away. This is your chance. Go get it. So I just thought those were the shots I wrote down off the top of my head that were like, this is insane.
7 was he opened the face on a 9-iron. And he said he just tried to murder it, which is,
and he did.
For a Rory fan, you're like, great. That's exactly
that's when he's best.
Well, that's fair. I'll give you that. Yeah, it's the wedges that we got to take some off. Yeah. But you talk about the shot on 12, man. Just sawing that off perfectly into the middle of the green, very 2019 Tiger-esque, while everybody else was dying, melting out there on that hole, and really struggling there in Amen corner. Tiger just he played at center of the green, took a comfortable 2-putt, gave that the birdie putt an opportunity to go in, and Rory seemed to take that same line today. And so in that moment, much like yourself, I was like, okay, well, let's see on 13. You can get in trouble on 13. I was the happiest guy in the world when he decided to lay up on 13. Happiest guy in the world. He hits a little draw in there, gets even on a flat level down in the bottom left, and it's just like, this is it. Like, that's when for me, and this whole probably 3 or 4 minute process went between him playing his second and addressing his third. I was like, he's playing too good. Like he can't screw this up. He won't screw this up. He's learned, he knows. But then I go back and fast forwarding to post round interviews, he's the Masters champion, and he's talking about that shot on 13. He has 80 yards to the flag, and he's aiming slightly right of that flag. And to me, that is insane. Now, Rory was obviously a much better golfer than I'll ever be. But, I'm hitting it 40 feet left, and I'm 2-putting. Rory, obviously a player of his caliber, is thinking about getting that up and down and is in complete control. But, yeah, to me, I was really surprised to hear, as he said, he's on that type of lie. Sometimes it comes off a little bit left for him, so he's getting himself some room to the right. Now, that's where the danger was. Not that he was aiming directly into the creek and out the water, but crazy, man. As a fan, to hear his process about some of these shots and then watch him and try to execute them, because you really have to go for it on 15 there. To sling a 7-iron. And yeah, you're slinging a big 7-iron, so all you got to do is get cover there, and that's going to release, up that hill some. And so you just got to get cover there. And he struck it really, really well, obviously. But that's Rory. It's like you just said. I think what you said is perfect. He's a bit of a a gunslinger, to put it in quarterback terms. He's gonna have some really, really fancy scores, and there's gonna be times where like, what the hell are we thinking in this moment? And as long as you can take that and accept that for what it is, being a Rory fan becomes a little bit more fun, because he'll definitely leave you scratching your head here or there, time or two.
I will say that I know we talked about those shots. The drive on 18, when it was like, okay, you have to make par to win the tournament in regulation. Both drives on 18, I thought were like, that's where, he had that little weak fan sort of out to the right almost the whole tournament. And then you blow that shot, you blow that drive in the bunker on 18, and we saw Ludwig, have hell trying to get that ball, out of that bunker and up on that green. And so it's not an easy driving hole on 18. The shoot is tight, and then
it's not his particular shot shape.
Yeah, shape. Stripes it in regulation, and then to not make par there, and then to have to go back and then watch Justin Rose pipe one right down the middle, and then to step up and basically hit the same drive. He said he was a couple yards closer, so even a little bit better. I thought that was incredible that both of those drives found the fairway, because for him, at least on the front nine, that was sort of the problem. I think he only hit 2 or 3 fairways on the front nine. He was sort of driving it all over the place, and that had sort of given him fit. So to step up and put both of those balls in the fairway, and then, also sort of exercise the demons we were talking about. If there was another one, think about it. Basically same yardage, same club on 18. Regulation, he hits it in the bunker, makes bogey, and then in the playoff hole, stuffs it to 3 feet, makes birdie and ends up winning. So it's just like sort of a culmination of everything, but that was just the way that it was, and it was one of the most incredible golf tournaments I've ever seen. What a watch.
I will say that I fully agree with you. I mean, obviously, I just told you guys haven't, I watched Tiger in the Masters growing up as a child, but I've probably been really dialed in, I guess, for the last Baker's dozen or so Masters. And for me, I mean, clearly 2019 Tiger was really dang cool, but the story of Rory, him getting there, and then with Tiger's back nine, Tiger just kind of held on. He made a lot of pars. I think he had 2 birdies there on the back, and everybody else just kind of fell apart. This was a movie that couldn't be scripted. As you said earlier, Danny, no golf purist, no golf junkie, golf digest, no writer could come up with what they just saw. You would only believe that if you saw it with your eyes. And so special times, I mean, Justin Rose definitely deserves an incredible shout out for the round of golf he played, the tournament that he had. Pre-shot routine be damned. He does not care. He might look goofy for about 3 seconds there doing that pre-shot routine, but I mean, he was dialed, and really particularly that putter. That putter was white hot. I mean, incredible golf from Justin Rose, and you do feel bad for him just as a fan of the game. We talked about him some on Wednesday, I think, or maybe it was during the round 1 update on Thursday. But this is a guy that's been around a long time. He's been squarely in it during the last 2 major championships. Another guy that he lost his second Masters playoff. Is there anybody out there that has multiple losses in Masters playoffs?
No, I don't think so. I was thinking about that because I had texted you also, and I said, man, I'm not, like I said, I've said it, I'm not a Rory guy, but I was like, just for golf, I'm become a Rory fan on this back nine because I'm like, I just don't want to see him, lose this opportunity at history. And I think overall, that overall, like, golf was to be celebrated today. Like, we are lucky as golf fans, the majors we get for a year, we get Live and PGA back together, and it was just some incredible golf. But Justin Rose, to your point, like, that's sort of the beauty of sports is, on the one side, and then you sort of have, the agony of loss or defeat on the other side. And that dude played his heart out all week. He had a 1 bad round yesterday where, he said the putter went cold on him, and he said, I should have easily shot 69 and I turned that into 75. And then today goes crazy and shoots 6 under. But yeah, I mean, Rory sort of exercising his demons, but Rosie to be in 2 playoffs, and then to lose to Sergio and to Rory, probably 2 of his, buddies or Ryder Cup teammates, like, right. That has to be so tough for him to come close twice, and not even, close, like a playoff twice. And he hit an incredible shot in there on 18 as well, whatever it was, yep. 8 iron that landed a foot just dead in front of the hole and sort of rolled up that hill and stayed up there. So yeah, you have to feel for him, and man, he played incredible golf this week. And sort of what you thought about him maybe being older and sort of out of it, I think the last 2 majors have shown us that, he's still around to play some good golf, especially in big spots.
Yeah, absolutely, man. That's really well said. Again, he was in it last year in the Open, and so I think Rosie, he's been playing some of his better golf, and he's pretty nasty with an iron in his hand. Normally, he didn't have his best week with his irons, but I'm gonna say this, Kayla, she's, as we watch Rosie's ball almost dunk, and then kind of get stuck towards the bottom of that ridge on 18. I told her, I was like, we need Rory to just fly the ball into that ridge, and we're good. Just one hop it, just right into that ridge, and we win the tournament. And she was like, what? I was like, yeah, I mean, Rose has a tough putt. I was like, that's downhill, it's quick, it's going to be moving a little bit. I was like, just land it on the ridge. It feeds back. We've seen it a billion times. And to watch Rory, just pull off, I mean, a pretty perfect shot, a lot better of a shot. He didn't really have that hanging lie, I think, that they talked about on broadcast on 18 that he did in the playoff hole, but a much better swing, great result. And that's kind of going back to your point early on. It kind of just felt like it had to be that way. Like, it had to be a Rory birdie rolls in a 3, 4, 5 footer, 10 footer, saves par on 18 to defend somebody, something like that had to be done. Which it could have been a bunker save, which would have been cool too. But hey, it's a playoff. A lot of demons exercised. Let me say this: anybody outside of Rory that really just kind of stood out to you this week, and maybe you think it builds momentum for them heading into the rest of the season?
I mean, I think shout out, Max Homa finally showed that he can actually still play golf. And, I'm a Homa guy, but I think he finished in the top 12. So I thought he played good. Patrick Reed played good, other than he had a 3-putt bogey on 13 that sort of knocked him out of it. But I think a lot of those guys, I think it was cool to see Max. He hadn't made a cut in forever. He finally makes a cut. He ends up getting a top 12. Like, that was cool to see. But I said, shout out to Max Homa's old caddy, Joe Griner. They're best friends. Joe is his caddy. He just left like a week or two ago. Max had been in sort of bad spots, and Joe ended up saying he was going to not go to his bag, and he ended up caddying for JT this week. But I was like, dude, that poor guy might have to take a loan out to pay his mortgage this year, because Homa hasn't made a cut all year, and then JT makes a cut, and he's in the first group out today. So that poor dude, shout out to him. Set up a GoFundMe or whatever for him, but that poor dude hadn't gotten paid in a while.
I hadn't even thinking about that, to be honest with you. But yeah, the homie Max Homa stepping up, playing some really good golf. You love to see that. I'm a big Max fan. I think he's brilliant for the game. But yeah, the struggles, you didn't really know they were so bad. You didn't really know if or when he'd come out of it. And to see him do it at a place like Augusta, I'm sure it means a ton to Max. And hopefully Max plays some really good golf. But, I think, obviously Oberg, Ludwig's going to be a problem for the PGA Tour for a very long time. A guy that I think wins multiple majors. I mean, he's as cool as they come. He plays really fast. It doesn't seem like much bothers him from the mental side of this game, which for a lot of these guys can be the most difficult part. But Zach Johnson, I mean, was that kind of a shocker to you, seeing Zach Johnson with a little bit of a charge over the weekend? I mean, honestly, every time Zach gets on the course, it feels like there's some type of drama nowadays, whether it be Ryder Cup action or on the during a major on the course. But
even though he was going sort of, lights out yesterday, I mean, it's Zach Johnson. It doesn't ever really feel like it's a threat. It's like, he's just sort of hanging around. But Scotty, to feel like he obviously didn't play his best this week, and he, it's like the worst he can do at Augusta is, 4th place or whatever. That sort of tells you just how good he is. But somebody said in the chat, Corey Connors, he obviously can just ball strike it with the best of them. He just can't, with get the putter going sometimes.
Putter's not good enough. No,
I mean, right before Rory, he stuffed one on 15 too. Almost the exact same sort of thing. He had, 8 feet, 9 feet, 10 feet for eagle, and the ball didn't even sniff the hole.
I can't talk too much because Rory. Did Rory put on 18 touch the hole? If it did, it was barely.
No, missed it low. Which over the years, I was actually watching with my dad, and you always see guys on 18 sort of overread that putt and miss it high. Just like Bryson did, because everybody thinks that putt breaks left, and I just remember seeing guys down the stretch always leave that high side, and Bryson did it. And I told my dad, I was watching, I go, Rory's going to miss this on the high side if he's going to miss it, and he missed it low, and it was almost like either he tugged it or he was nervous, or maybe because Bryson missed it high, he took a little bit of break out of it and then ended up missing it. But yeah, his didn't. He had a couple of those. He missed his eagle putt on 15 too when he stuffed it in there.
Yeah, he did. Let me tell you this. I'm such a fan of Rory. If he's putting from inside of 10 feet in, I can almost just watch his stroke and can tell you if it fell or not, because sometimes he just doesn't let that putter head get through and flow naturally. Sometimes he's more of not a punch, because he's smoother than that. But in that one particular, and every time he does that, he misses left. He misses left a lot on shorties. You can go back and watch many times for many putts. He misses left a lot. Danny, I know you got to get out of here soon. I have one more question, one more topic here. Landon brings up a good point, man. You gotta start looking around and saying, okay, where's the PGA champ? it's a Quail Hollow. Rory McIlroy owns Quail Hollow. I believe he has 5 wins at that particular venue. Well, then you want to talk about the U.S. Open. That venue is a bomber's paradise. And of course, Rory was not the only one that'll benefit from this, but it's going to be a bomber's course in my opinion there. And so, and then yeah, you go to the Open, and you're talking about being in his home country in Northern Ireland. I mean, Rory fans are probably insufferable, but I mean, is it crazy to with the way that he's playing for them to even utter the words Grand Slam as far as just in a calendar season and not his overall career?
No, I mean, it only took him 11 years to get his career one. So, yeah, sure. I'm sure he can rattle it off, the next 3 in a row. That seems to be like what he's going to do. But no, I think, he's playing the best golf. He's sort of played an extended stretch now, even going back to the end of last year. So, I mean, today wouldn't be the day for me to say, he's not getting another major this year. He definitely could. It just the thought for me, if I'm playing the other side, if I'm doing a steel man on why Rory won't win another major, is because this was so emotional for him. This was sort of the outlet. This was I gave it everything. This is what I've looked at, and now it's this sort of I can take my foot off the gas. Now, I don't necessarily believe that. That would just be the one thing that you could sort of probably make the argument for. I think he's too competitive. He's obviously too great that, he's not going to be like, okay, I have 5 majors and, now I have a career Grand Slam and I'm good and right. I'm not going to keep working as hard. I'm sure he's probably like, I'd like to get this to 10 if I can. So I think, he's going to probably be the favorite in the, at the US Open, probably at the Open Championship too. So I definitely wouldn't be surprised if he rattles off a couple this year, but if I would bet him to go Grand Slam, I'll leave that to you boys and the Rory apologists to put the money behind that.
That's fair. I couldn't do that because he won without me betting on him, so I'm riding that wave. Last question. We got to answer Joshy here. And real quick, guys, if y'all are still here, please throw a like on the video. I know most of y'all have subscribed to the channel, but if not, please go ahead and do so. It's free and easy. It takes 2 seconds. And it would show, that y'all like the PGA stuff and want us to continue with it. But Danny, I'm going to let you answer Joshy first here. Masters weekend or March Madness opening weekend, that first 4 days. Which one are you taking there?
I don't know if this is a cop-out, but I would go Thursday, Friday, March Madness, Saturday, Sunday, Masters. Because the first 2 days of March Madness, at least for me, are the best 2. And then you obviously, you have so many games, and that's usually when the crazy stuff happens. But if I had to pick gun to my head, I'd probably go March Madness. But if I could mix and match, I would go give me the Thursday, Friday of March Madness, and then give me the weekend of the Masters.
I respect a quality loophole for sure. I'm rolling with the Masters, Joshy, and I know that you, obviously we talk a lot. It's chalk. The future is chalk of college basketball. Is chalk. That's what the future looks like. I think of the big time upsets, the 13-4s, that type of situation, the 15-2s we get every now and then. Like I think those are going to be even fewer and further in between because all that talent at the mid-major level is going to be poached for depth pieces, for starting pieces. And so I love March Madness, man. 5 years ago, you asked me this question, I'm going to tell you March Madness without a doubt. But as the way things currently stand with the level of competition at the top of the PGA, I'm going to take the Masters, man. Also, the par 3 just gets cooler and cooler. Shane Lowry's daughter rolling a putt and getting real excited. Rory's kiddo somehow rolling that downhill putt in. But I don't think there's a wrong answer there. But Joshy, drop your comment in the or your answer rather in the comments. Curious to know which way you're leaning. All right, Danny. Anything else before I let you slide out?
Yeah, I gotta give you guys. I gotta hear you say one thing. Obviously, I know you guys are big. Texas fans. Texas, you got the college baseball guy, and I'm an Aggie. So thanks for letting me on the show, anyways. But obviously, this baseball season has just been an absolute nightmare for us. But did you see what they did? What was that last night at the end of that game? Was that not the wildest thing you've ever seen?
Yeah, I was really – Ava had a volleyball tournament, and so we were running around, and that was towards the end of the tournament. And I got a text from somebody, and it just said A&M A&M something, like it was like almost gibberish. I was just like, what is going on? And so, yeah, go look at that box score. It's just like there's no
2 grand
way.
slams in the 9th inning to win.
I will say this, Danny, we talk about A&M baseball in here all the time. We talk Sooner baseball. We have A&M shows, Texas shows. So we'll get you on for some Aggie baseball if you're interested, because it's probably a lot more fun to talk about right now than it was a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, definitely. I'll tell you this one last thing, and then I gotta go. But I obviously have a group chat with some college buddies, and Rory goes, "What did he go double on 13, and then did he bogey 14?"
Rory went, I think he bogeyed 11, par 12, doubled. Did he? I think he bogeyed 14. Yeah, pretty sure.
Yeah, I think he did too. So you Texas fans will get a joke out of this, because obviously being an Aggie fan, it's just anything that can go wrong will go wrong. So my A&M group chat blows up with, after 14, is Rory an Aggie ... Because it just seemed like he was just going to get in his own way. And then he stuffs it on 15, and we were like, oh, yeah, never mind. A&M could never do that. They would just, get in their own way.
So, can't do that, man.
No.
I'll say this. A lot of people, obviously written A&M off for dead. And now what is that? 7 conference wins? Or no, it's more than that. 2, maybe not. Oh, no, there are 6 conference wins. And then you have Missouri for 3 games. So that's an automatic 9 conference wins. And then you have Texas, LSU, Arkansas, and one other series in there. So if you win just one of each of those series, you're getting in the tournament. And if A&M gets in, same thing I've said all week. I hate to say it, but Texas fans have been on my butt about it, Danny. But I've said if y'all get in, there's as good a chance for them as anybody else, to be honest.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I said, I sort of, I have no expectations for anything A&M anymore. Obviously, we had our shot last year, couldn't get it, and then lose our coach to you guys. So I'm just still the all my defenses are up until I see something different. But yeah, we'll see. I mean, obviously the talent's there. It's just obviously the execution, new coach, those sorts of things. But I'm sure you guys will get into it. I don't want to get into too much baseball. Keep it golf tonight. But I just thought you'd find that. One, I thought it was a crazy ending last night, and then the way Rory was like reminded us that you actually can go through adversity and still come out on top.
It happens, and the worst thing about that correlation between A&M baseball and Rory is Aggies were sending me the South Carolina tweet that was posted by the official baseball account at the end of the 6th inning in that game when the Aggies were down 12-3, and they were like, Rory McIlroy going to the back 9, and I was like, oh my gosh, like what are you doing to me over here? But I really, I will say, y'all still watching, man. It was a lot of fun the way that y'all interacted, because I know I was a mess on the Twitter timeline. I let every emotion out. Pants were off. There was a lot of things going on the last 3 or 4 days. And so y'all made it fun though, man. A lot of people were either really for Rory or really against Rory. And so thank y'all for all the interactions. Danny, thank you for coming back and doing this. We will be back, guys. I'm not sure exactly when. We'll do another PGA show, but we'll get back on here and chop it up and maybe talk a few more bets and whatnot. Enjoy your week. The Masters is a long way away, unfortunately. But for me, it's Roy's jacket until then. So I'm good with
Congratulations. It's a great weekend for you guys.
It is, man. Everyone have a good night, Danny. Thank you very much, brother. Y'all have a good one.